When Beth and her family moved into their home 2 years ago, the garden was just grass. But with the passion for growing their own food, they've transformed this space into a thriving, productive garden. Now they don't buy any veggies during summer, and their goal is to get it going through winter as well. Today we are visiting Beth's garden in Hamilton to see how she can make it all happen for her family, her kids, and even the wider community.
Kia ora, I'm Beth Vickers and this is my garden in lovely Hamilton. My husband and I bought this house around 2 years ago, and when we first arrived the whole thing was grass. There was maybe one little garden bed just here, and I had a dream when we bought our first home of having a veggie garden. And so we built these 3 garden beds just here, and I became obsessed. I adore veggie gardening. And it has just grown and grown and grown. And every year the garden is becoming more and more productive. My goal this year is to have grown enough to sustain us all the way through the winter. Last year we didn't buy any vegetables all summer. We've got some fruit because we don't have a huge range in the garden yet. But this year I think I might succeed, but I've got a lot of fruits and veggies in the freezer that I've dehydrated, and I hope to be able to sustain our family just on what we've grown in our garden. So this year we built the tomato garden. I love tomatoes. They're one of my favourite things to grow in the summer. I think a lot of gardeners are the same. Tomatoes are like the thing you're excited about in the summer. And I wanted a much bigger space to grow my tomatoes. So we built this one low to the ground, and then we put a wire fence around it so that we could put the stakes in and tie them up that way. Because last year they got so big and collapsed, and it was just tomato chaos. So this year we did that. It's still pretty chaotic. I don't think there's much I can do about that, but it has worked quite well. They're looking a little bit sad this year. Not this year, now, where we are in the season. I think I'm just about to top them. I'm deciding whether it's time or not. But they've still got quite a lot of fruit on them. And by topping them, it just promotes them ripening that fruit rather than trying to set heaps more fruit while it's getting cold. So if you stress them out a little bit, it can prompt them to ripen, and then you get all of those lovely ripe tomatoes. So in here, I have companion planted marigold and basil. From what I've learned, marigold is the best thing you can companion plant with just about everything. It improves the flavour of things, and it's one of the best pest deterrents that there are. I have barely had any bugs in here this year. My tomatoes got destroyed last year, and there are caterpillars, but it's not horrific enough that I would need to do anything about it. You know, we've had so many tomatoes. I've got mountains of dehydrated tomato sauce. We've got a freezer packed full of tomatoes. So fingers crossed we won't have to buy any. So we've got a few fruit trees. We've got a lovely big peach tree that was here when we arrived. We had an amazing year first year, and then last year was rubbish. And here I've planted a load of courgettes. For some reason, I decided to plant 7 courgette plants. I had 3 last year, and we had too many courgettes. so I don't know why I did that, but I did. And so now we're rolling in courgettes and I can't give them away fast enough. um, so when I first started my garden, I figured a lot of it out, and I decided to start a little social media for it because I loved it so much. It's kind of a special interest of mine, and I wanted to share that with people. So I started making TikTok videos about my garden. And miraculously, they've been really popular and my gardening account has done really well. So I mostly make like harvesting videos. So it's kind of like ASMR, look what I can harvest in my garden, and just the sounds of things, the beans popping off the vine, people seem to really like. And I think the climate in New Zealand is quite different to a lot of places in that you can grow the same as like North America and England and stuff, but you can also grow tropical fruits. I've got bananas in my garden, which when I was in England, I wouldn't have even dreamed of having. And so the garden has been really productive, and I'm able to share that with lots of people. So I'm trying to branch out now from just harvesting videos into more like tips and tricks with gardening, because I get so many people asking me gardening questions, friends, family, strangers on the internet. Um, and I love talking about it. So I'm like, why don't I start to share that with people? So I've got my TikTok and I'm doing a bit on there, and I'm branching out into other avenues. My TikTok is Beth's Garden _ if anyone wants to have a look. I share my garden on there too. I have 2 young children. I've got a almost 2-year-old and an almost 4-year-old. And so I have had to kind of release any expectations of myself and what I can achieve in the garden. Some days they love coming out here and helping me, and some days it's absolute chaos and we've got to just call it a day, But I think when I first started gardening, I really thought it had to be completely hands-on. You've got to plan everything you're going to plant. You've got to cycle everything through, and it's got to be really serious. But actually releasing that expectation has been really nice. And, if you water things pretty regularly, if you feed things pretty regularly, they're probably going to do okay. And I'm deep enough into gardening now that in this garden that I know what I'm working with in terms of the climate, the soil, where the light is good, that kind of thing. So you can kind of let go of control and release the reins a little bit, I suppose. There's always so many garden jobs to do, and I would love to be able to stay on top of them all the time, but I can't, and that's okay. For example, my tomatoes this year, they've had some kind of disease, I think. The leaves just have not, they kind of start to die off I know they die off from the bottom up normally, but they were getting some kind of spots on them, and I was like, this looks like some kind of disease, but I actually can't be bothered worrying about it, so I'm just going to cut them off. And they've been absolutely fine. Just because something gets a disease doesn't mean it's going to die. For example, here in the Waikato, it's so humid that you're almost certainly going to get powdery mildew at some point in the season. Whatever, just cut off the really bad leaves. If you want to spray it, you can. All of my courgettes have got powdery mildew, and they are still pumping courgettes out. All of my tromboncino squash, they've got powdery mildew, and I've got so many I wouldn't know where to start with eating them all. Just don't worry about it. It's my kind of vibe in the garden. If there's something that's eating everything, yeah, you probably need to do something, but it's not that serious. It's just growing veggies. It's all good. One of my greatest joys is coming out here with my boys and them just going and snacking on the kai in the garden. Going and grabbing some cherry tomatoes. The broad beans were really popular. They'd just go and pull them off, and there'd be little bean pods scattered all around the garden. They loved it. And isn't that just one of the most beautiful things in life? Growing fresh kai that your kids can come and just pick and eat immediately. I think that is true richness, in my opinion. that is what I want for my family, being able to do that. And, you know, it brings me so much joy and calm and peace. It didn't for a while because I was stressed out about everything. Then when I realized I didn't need to be stressed out anymore, it was fine. And I love it. At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over. And life is like a song. Oh, yeah, yeah, at last. The skies above are blue. My heart was wrapped up in clover. The night I looked at you, I found a dream that I could speak to. A dream that I can call my own. I've found a thrill to rest my cheek to. A thrill that I have never known. Oh, you smile, you smile. Oh, and then the spell was cast. And here we are in heaven. For you were mine at last.